Line's good.
Never on.
Whoa.
Hard. Hardly.
Come on, Brent.
Line's good.
Got real close.
I hear high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Ooh, welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham, Scott alongside, as always. Hello, Scott.
Sean, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. How about you?
Pretty good over here. It's starting to warm up. Snow's melting. I'm feeling very treacherous going to my car at the back. It's very, very icy, but you know what? Spring's on the way. And
it is.
No surer sign of spring being here than the Brier coming to a close. The Canadian champions have been decided. That's what we're here to talk about.
Indeed, we are. The Tim Hortons Brier wrapped up on Sunday night out in Lethbridge. Brad Gushue captures his fourth Canadian curling championship in the past 6 years, I believe. Very dominant run here for Brad Gushue. He tops, of course, Kevin Cooey in the final. And just a quick note as we start here, if you're looking at the title, it's not just going to be Brier. If you're interested in Paralympics or Women's World, just check the show notes. I'll give timestamps for that, but we're going to go through all those in this episode. But starting with the Tim Hortons Brier, and that final, Scott, goes to an extra end, a bit of a high scoring affair in that game. 8-8. I was away for the Brier. I saw none of it live. I did, upon my return, see some of what was happening in replays. And so I've watched the final, or most of the final, I should say. I skipped through the blank ends, but I did watch the key points of that game. And I got to say, for the overall game, it's a higher scoring game than certainly what we saw in previous years, and certainly at the trials in the final of that game. And I thought it was really curious. We've seen Kevin Cooey do this before. He's down a point with the hammer in the ninth end. Essentially, it seems to me, just concedes that point in the ninth end to go down 2. And throughout that 10th end, it was hit and miss as to whether or not he would be able to pull off and win that game. Of course, I was watching it knowing that he did not win the game. But Scott, in real time, did you have a sense that they might actually do this as we've seen them do it before?
Yeah, that 10th end, like you say, I was, when he made his hit for one, I kind of thought, or to give up one, rather, his draw to give up one, I thought, that's really strange. Like, it's very hard to score 3 points, and maybe not as hard to steal one. And the theory is then, well, we'll try to get 3. If we only get 2, then we're still tied. And I'm kind of like, well, why don't you just get it over with and do the tie part now? Because I guess it gives you 2 chances. So, yeah, but they were putting the rocks in really, really precise spots, really looking good. And then Gushue just made like 2 pretty excellent shots to hold them to the 2. So I did think going into that 10th end, I was like, well, they have no chance. Like, boy, I'm going to be up in bed pretty soon. And then, extra end. So, no, it was a really, really good game. I enjoyed watching the whole thing live. And it just like little misses from BJ Neufeld mostly that cost Cooey the game. And something that we talked about around the table on Monday night, Sean, at our game, was that Cooey just never seemed to make the adjustment for BJ, right? Like, it's one thing to have the player try to adjust, but if the skip is noticing something consistently happening, you can give him like an extra broom or 2, right? And try to make up for it that way. But they didn't make that adjustment, and the Gushue, the story is incredible. The way they played is incredible. Just like everything, I could talk about anything, but what's like the most impressive part of Gushue's performance to you?
That they did it. Like, there's so much to it that we said in the preview, and I believe I said specifically, all they have to do is show up and shake hands and kiss babies, and their obligation would be filled. And then I looked up on Wednesday, I believe the first time I had access to internet or with enough time to check on the scores was Wednesday, and I hadn't lost yet. I thought that's kind of that's I'm sorry, is whoever's running the Curling Canada website just doing this out of habit and not actually paying attention to the games? Because there's no way they're undefeated at this point. And then okay, fine, it happens. Then I had access again to internet on Friday night, and Mark Nichols is out. Okay, well, okay, good for them. They had a nice run. You know, good. They didn't lose during the week, and they made the playoffs. Great job by them. But tough break on Mark Nichols going out. And then I'm at the airport on Sunday. Like, wait, what? They're in the final. What is happening right now? And then I land, and oh my God, like they're winning. What is happening here? Like, it was just so bizarre to follow along at a distance because none of it really made any logical sense that they were able to continue to win given the obstacles that were already in their way, and then have Mark Nichols just hang out for the playoffs, eating donuts and tweeting, and they're able to pull it off. It was that might be the most, and I tweeted this from afar, that when I saw the score, I think I tweeted something like, if that score holds and they win, it's pretty high at the top of the all-time impressive Brier win rankings. And it might be up there with the Mark Dacey win in terms of unexpected wins of somebody. And it's weird to say of Brad Gushue, like, you don't expect him to win. But again, given all the circumstance and then throwing Mark Nichols on top of that, it's pretty high up there in terms of impressive victories and unexpected victories for me.
Yeah, and what was like to me the most impressive was how they put that together through the week. They had a 1-point win over Shakeups, a 1-point win over Gunlickson. The rest of their wins were by 3 or more, I think. I guess BC late the last game they beat them by 1, but they had one loss to Botcher and then came back in that 3-4 game and Brad made a pretty great shot to beat Colton Flash, who we'll talk about in a bit. They had a great week. But then the game against Botcher Sunday morning or afternoon, I guess, they like totally dominated that game. And I thought they were in the driver's seat most of the way against Kui as well. I tweeted something about, like, they scored 4 threes on their last 5 hammers. Up to that point, I tweeted, like, they were just in the zone. Like, I said, I wonder why Kui did that. Try to score 3. Well, I guess, Brad Gushue made it look easy. that whole rest of that day, like, 3, yeah, that's easy. So super, super impressive. What was most impressive maybe to me was Jeff Walker stepping in and calling line. I know the skip can call line from shooting, but just the way, like, the perfect rolls that they were able to get, it was just really incredible for somebody that hasn't done that at a high level game in, like, what was it, 10 years or something?
Yeah,
so
something like that.
Just plus you add in the Olympic experience. They were there. I do believe they got a good boost seeing their families in Lethbridge there. They were able to come out and get there and just have like a breath, I guess. That seemed to really boost their spirits, but not enough words to say how impressive that was.
No,
although I just used a bunch.
So. Yeah, they're playing essentially with house money there. So there's no pressure on them, and I don't think they had any pressure on themselves either going into it. That Brad was very open about. Yeah, we probably won't win. We probably won't have a chance to win. And then they go and they do it. And I watched the post game after the final, where Brett Gallant was asked about this being it for this team, and he got emotional, saying that when Mark was tested positive for COVID, about how he thought that that would have been the worst way to end 8 years together, of marking a hotel room and then losing in the playoffs. And now that's not the case, unless something awful happens in Vegas and one of them tests positive in Vegas. But that opportunity for them to finish off this run of the four of them together at Vegas at a world championship is pretty cool, and something that certainly, based off of the emotion that Brett had in that moment, and you see it a little bit with Brad as well, that'll be meaningful to them. It'll be a lot of fun, and I'm sure they'll have a good time out in Vegas. And congratulations to them. And I think at some point, maybe in the summer, Scott will try to put together some list of the most impressive or unexpected Brier victories of all time, and we'll see where this one stacks up when we have a little more time to reflect on it and not be just kind of dumbfounded by how this happened the way we are right now.
Yeah, for sure. That right now, that's just front of mind, and it's so incredible. But maybe a sober second thought will bump it down, but I don't expect it to go that far down.
Yes. So fourth victory, as I said, for Brad Gushue. Crazy after all those years of not being able to get one. No, he can't seem to lose. And yet another final as well, featuring Kevin Cooey. And I don't believe we've had a final that has not included Kevin Cooey, Brendan Botcher, or Brad Gushue this quad.
Yeah, I don't think since 2017, right?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure Ryan tweeted out at Rocks Across the Pond that in this quad plus this year, only 15 individuals have played in Brier finals, which is bonkos.
Yeah, we talk about the men's field in Canada maybe being a bit deeper than the women's field right now.
Maybe not.
And maybe we're wrong, right? I guess we could just be wrong. But looking at the whole rest of the field, picking out some of the stories, I mentioned Colton Flash and his Saskatchewan team there.
Yep.
They had a really, really great week. They lost a tough one in their last the last round robin to Dunstone to force that tiebreaker.
I thought they beat Dunstone to force the tiebreaker.
Oh, hold on.
They beat Dunstone. Yeah, they had to bring Dunstone down to 2 losses.
Yeah.
And they did that and then forced the tiebreaker. Beat them again then on Friday morning?
Friday morning, yeah. So it was really strange because it just looked like I assumed that they had won or that they had lost that game on Thursday because Dunstone played really well, from what I remember. And it was just sort of a tough at the end. Oh, they made a shot, and Colton wasn't that good that game. And I don't know about you, Sean. When I watch Colton Flash play, like, he always looks like he's upset about something. Even when he makes a shot, he's kind of like,
right,
little like, oh, that could have rolled a quarter inch more or whatever. But no, they pulled it out in the last end, brought them back, then were able to beat them again in that tiebreaker game, where it just looked like Team Dunstone didn't have it that morning. Kirk Myers didn't have a great game, and it just, Maddie missed a couple. It wasn't falling into place for them, which is too bad because I think they also had a pretty good week and were set up in a pretty good spot to get through that until that famous tiebreaker.
Well, they were undefeated until they showed up against Brendan Botcher. So they go out and they win their first 6 games, and then they do not win one after that, losing to Brendan Botcher, and then the 2 games to Flash to be eliminated. Kind of tough to be eliminated after a 6-0 record. But if you look at that first game against Flash, they get down 5-0 in that game, and maybe that's why Flash was a little frustrated later in the game. He had a 5-0 lead. And gives it back.
The fight that they had to come back in that game, it's you're right, they did get down 5-0. So I guess my characterization of them having a good game is maybe not right, but
had a great second half.
That's it. Like, that's what I remember, right? They scored a 3 forced, got a 2. Like it was textbook like how to win.
Right.
But they just ran out of ends. That said, like Dunstone he played well. It was just the other side of the inch on those first 5 ends. So yeah, a tough week for them. Sean, you picked them to win.
I did.
Sorry. Looking at like all of Pool A, if we look back at Pool A, Brendan Botcher's team goes 7-1 in the round robin. Kevin Cooey also 7-1, and I believe the game that Botcher lost was to Cooey. Yes, that's right. And Cooey lost to Dunstone. So both those teams obviously quite strong. I don't think we have much more to say. I guess Patrick Jansen stepping in at third. We talked about him being a nice player in our preview.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I thought about it throughout the week, Sean, I guess we would have said the same about Darren Moulding 4 years ago, right?
Yeah, I think that's
nice player.
True. Nice player. A bit of a pedigree. He's been around a while. Good guy. And yeah, that's, I think, fair that we would have put him into that category. And obviously the run was a lot better than that. Patrick Jansen, shooting percentage wise, didn't exactly light up the field. He's in the lower half, I believe, of the third position over the course of the week. Now that, I guess, is thrown off if you count Pat Simmons throwing 100% on 2 shots in a game, but he was +2 at 81%. So not bad. Like it's good, but I think if you're Brendan Botcher, and it's tough, it's 1 week, and
yeah,
maybe Patrick Jansen is going to be the permanent position, the permanent replacement for Darren Moulding there. I don't know, but he is capable of it. But you do wonder, now that we have seen the official announcement of other teams breaking up, whether or not there's going to be some movement within that foursome, or if Brendan wants to keep that consistency, because Patrick's been around for a long time. It's obviously comfortable with him being around. And if that could be the team moving forward, I don't know. But certainly Patrick Jansen, from the number side of it, did nothing this week to disqualify himself from being a member of a high level team that has a legitimate chance to win.
Yeah, exactly. The rest of the pool, or to round it out, Sean, tough week for Team Ontario. They got off to a rough start. I think they were 0-3 before they won a game. New Brunswick, we'll talk about that Botcher Grattan game Saturday night. That was fun. Were you able to see any of that? No, eh?
Just some clips. I haven't watched it through yet. I'm saving that.
The crowd was hot, Sean. We talked in our preview. It'd be fun to have a hot crowd there on Saturday night. The crowd was hot, and they were very pro New Brunswick. There was some chance of Botcher, like when he was going to throw a shot.
Wow.
So, yeah, there was definitely a crowd favorite in that one. It was also weird because I think Kevin Cooey was playing at the same time, and yet most of the Alberta fans were there cheering for New Brunswick.
But that's it. I mean, that's the feature. I mean, that it makes total sense. Like, it's early in the week. Kevin Cooey's going to be fine. Like, doesn't really matter what happens in that game Saturday night. If he's playing, what's he playing? He's playing Newfoundland and Labrador. Like, okay, like with all respect to Team Young, I mean, come on, like the curling world's attention, at least the Canadian curling world's attention, is going to be on that game, because it's the defending champion kicking off his third before the Brier. I mean, of course, that's going to be where the attention is. And I'm glad it was a hot crowd. I was a respectfully hot crowd. I don't mind the chanting before a shot, but nothing during a shot. And when Team Canada makes a shot, hopefully they were respectful of all that, right? You cheer for the team you want to win, as opposed to necessarily anything like hurtful against the team who they are opposing, right? That's what you hope for.
Yeah, and so I think we got what we wanted from that matchup for sure.
Good.
Just rounding out the rest of the pool, PEI, Newfoundland, and Yukon, they all beat each other. So that's fun. And I believe those were the only games they didn't concede.
Let's see. Yeah. So a bit of a tough spell for those teams at the bottom half. Cool story. I did see Nicholas Codner did get in to a game. And as far as people know, nobody has, I think, found any evidence to the contrary, but youngest player to ever participate in a Brier game there for Team Newfoundland and Labrador. So the very cool moment there. Over in Pool B, mentioned Brad Gushue did not lose a game going through the round robin. Brad Jacobs finished second in the pool at 6-2. Then we have a tiebreaker scenario between Jason Gunlickson and Mike McEwen, finishing the two of them at 5-3. So we have a tiebreaker game, and it's really Mike Fournier, the last game, probably, maybe, that he plays out of Brier. He takes out Mike McEwen from a guaranteed playoff spot, beats him 9-6, which pushes Mike McEwen into that tiebreaker because Jason Gunlickson was in the clubhouse at 5-3. He had the bye in the last draw, and he could sit back and watch Mike Fournier go out in a blaze of glory, taking out Mike McEwen.
They got a big four bagger in that ninth end. I had gone to bed, Sean. I remember I thought, well, this game is looking close, but I'm pretty tired, and probably Manitoba will win. I think it was, McEwen was up 1 after the 8th, and I was like, they'll be fine. And sure enough, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, what? There's a tiebreaker. So yeah, good for Fournier, good for Team Quebec to go out with that blaze of glory, like you mentioned. Real tough for McEwen. They started pretty well, right? They were 3-1, but lost twice to Gunner this week. When you're familiar with a team, sometimes it's tough to beat them. Yeah. I had picked Brad Jacobs to win. I was very surprised by how they did in that afternoon, that sort of go home game, go home game against Colton Flash. I actually went out to get a beer because it was Friday, and I thought, I haven't been out to get a beer in 4 months, so let's go do it. But just really uncharacteristic for them to give up the steals they gave up and to give up that 4-ender as well. Just a tough game for them.
Yeah, they just didn't quite have it in that matchup, so they are eliminated. Just elsewhere in the pool, Brent Pierce goes 4-4. He had a chance to make the playoffs or get into that tiebreaker scenario in his last game against Brad Gushue, loses 8-7, so goes into the 10th end tied, and Gushue gets the single. So a good showing for Brent Pierce and his team out of British Columbia. And then similar to the other pool, I guess not quite as similar, but Nova Scotia, Paul Fleming, they struggled to 3-5. Northwest Territories in Jamie Cooey and Peter Mackey of Nunavut, they were both 0-7 going to the final game. And Scott, when I saw that from a distance, I thought of our friend Gavin Jameson, and I just hoped that game went into an extra end. That's all I could think of when I saw that they were playing each other. It did not. Jamie Cooey gets the win, and Peter Mackey and Nunavut remain winless at the Brier.
Yeah, too bad for Nunavut. And touching quickly on Nova Scotia, they started 3-0, Sean. They were a feature game, I believe, once on TSN, and we switched over to them another time. And their goal for the week, their stated goal, was 5 wins.
Okay.
And they just didn't quite have it. They had the soft early schedule. The third win they got was against Gunlickson, but then all the rest, it was a little bit rough. And especially the game against Mike Fournier, they gave up a 5 in the second end and then a steal of 4. And it was like, oof, this is going to be a long one. It was 9-1. I think that one might have been a feature. Anyway.
Oh no, you don't.
Yeah, like
that's not
draw
good.
feature.
Yeah, that's not what you like to see.
Not ideal. ideal. So
suboptimal for sure. And yeah, some of the scores did get out of hand here and there. Certainly the McEwen Peter Mackey game did get a lot of attention. 18-1 make the final there. So unfortunate that you see those scores, but that's just what's going to happen sometimes. And there were a lot of games at the trials that were blowouts too. So let's not totally overreact to that. So
well, Sean, that's going to happen when you make them play 8 ends.
Yeah, it is. It certainly is. But I'm not upset by it. I know it's not great, but I don't think, and this, well, I'm sure this will come up over the course of the summer, but some of the discourse that you saw or that I saw, and Ted Wyman had an article, a really good article about this, that the players don't like that this format is here and that the representation is what it is. And I look at it and I say, yeah, okay, like there's blowouts here, but there were blowouts at the trials when the teams are more equal. So the idea of eliminating blowout, don't change the format to eliminate blowouts, because you're going to still have them. So it's not going to be 18-1 probably, certainly, but I don't know, like the response to the blowouts when they happen to Peter Mackey seem really larger in significance than when they happen at the trials or when they happen at a Grand Slam and a team loses 9-2. Like people seem to be like, oh well, that happens, bad day. But when it happens at a Brier, it's like, well, get them out, we hate them. Like that's not come on, right?
Yeah, there's going to be lots more discussion about that, and we'll get into that then. But for now, no, we don't need to go there.
No. So, Scott, what about the broadcast? I saw online Cheryl Bernard was not there. Kathy Gauthier filled in here and there. Mudryk was there. Was he? I don't know if he was there the whole week. And I don't know. What was the broadcast like? What was the coverage like? A lot of attention. And the girls with Matt Hall, or I guess Matt Hall for the girls or on the girls show, did a Vic essay, because there was no Vic essay at the end of the broadcast, which upset some people. But overall, what was going on over the course of the week?
For me, it was a bit disjointed and a bit jarring to hear Brian Mudryk's voice in the evening. So for that first weekend, Vic wasn't there. I think he got there Sunday and was doing the Sunday night, but Mudryk was there before then. And then Mudryk was there like for the morning draw, Monday, Tuesday, maybe, and then left. And then it was Vic and Russ alone, seemed the rest of the time. And even, I think Kathy must have left or gone somewhere, because she wasn't even giving updates by the end of the week. So,
wow.
It was a little disjointed, maybe disconcerting to not have like, where are these people? What's going on? I looked for it on Twitter, try to find why and stuff, because I don't always get there, to see their stand up at the first 5 minutes of the game.
Right.
I usually tune in and they're just throwing the lead rocks of the game. So, I've timed this pretty well. I know what I'm doing, maximizing my time. So a little disjointed that way. And Sean, I'm not somebody that usually watches the Vic essay at the end. I know you love it. I like it, but I can watch it after. And like I mentioned, I was already 15 minutes later to go to sleep than I had anticipated. So I was, okay, I get it. They won. Now time to go up and go to bed.
Well, I like the Vic essay because to me, it's very over the top. It's very hyperbolic. I'm waiting for the day where he tells me that the players can walk on water and, turn water into wine and that kind of stuff. Like it's so over the top to me that I love it. Right. I saw somebody online today refer to it as gentle kitsch. And I thought, okay, I might go a little further, but it's a little kitschy. It's intended to draw out an emotional response for you, and it's essentially kind of the same thing every time about the country's best gathered. This team came on top, but what's great about the sport are the people, and the people make it, and the people are the greatest. They really are the best people you ever meet, and we'll do it again next year, and we can't wait. Like it's kind of like there's the only thing that really changes are the specific words and the photos. Like
There's
it's
a
not,
formula, yeah.
yeah, there's a formula to it. So I like watching it for that reason. I know people genuinely like it. I don't want to dismiss or anything or minimize it. If you love them and you do find them touching, great. That's what they're there for. That's what they're intended to do. That's perfect. I don't get that reaction from them, with the exception of the Mexican fan in Las Vegas. That's the one
Yeah.
I thought was like, okay, that, especially because she was there watching it, and in the arena they put it on the screen, and everyone kind of, because he says at the start, here's where she's sitting, and everyone kind of turns and looks at her. So that one was the one that just kind of got to me. And I like it when they do it in game, which they've really gotten away from the past couple of years. But they used to do like mini
Yeah.
essays over the course. I know when Nunavut, the Scotties won their first game, they did one like the next day of what that meant. And so I like those ones a little more than the ones at the end of the week.
Yeah, they do still have like the skip sort of interviews where they ask them a question.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, what did you do during the pandemic? One of them was about what does playing in the Brier mean, and the skip from Nunavut, Nathan Young,
That's Newfoundland.
Newfoundland. Yeah, the other N one. There's lots of N's.
That really are.
He said, I'm not going to do the accent because that's not right, but he said it's a lifelong dream to be in the Brier. And one time Vic was like, really? Lifelong dream? How old are you?
Yeah.
Like,
what?
You're 17, 18, whatever. So, yeah.
Vic was 48 years into his career when
you
this
were born.
kid was born. Yeah. Well, I mean,
but it was real. It was pretty cool. And them talking about, what it's like to be there. Glenn Howard, juxtaposed with Nathan Young. It was pretty neat. They also had a good video supporting Team Anderson, having them go all the skips basically saying, you've earned this great honor, go and have fun. And a lot of them saying they're happy that they get to do it in front of a crowd finally, after 2 years. One canceled, one in the bubble. Now you finally get to go play in front of a crowd. So that was nice too.
Yeah, I guess Shannon Burchard has won 4 Scotties, never been a regular member of a team in front of fans at a world championship.
Yeah, pretty
Kind
incredible.
of a weird thing, yeah. So that's good, and it's good that they were able to pull it off. Certainly difficult circumstances, obviously, for the crew out there. Obviously, there was some COVID being transmitted at some level within the event, given the situation with Mark Nichols. So hopefully everyone is doing well out there, and the crew is getting set for the Women's Worlds, which is, of course, coming up very, very quickly. So, Scott, anything else from the 2022 Brier?
No, I think it was a good show overall. It was cool watching curling with fans in the crowd. I don't think I would have been comfortable being there. Just that's my personal comfort level, but it was cool to have people in the stands watching curling, cheering shots. It was good,
and good fans too. Like in that final couple shots that look good but weren't, right? Like that maybe novice fans or people maybe new to the sport would see a hit that I think BJ Neufeld threw one in the 10th end that on the surface, like, oh, that's good, but it really wasn't. And you could tell from the crowd that they knew that that wasn't good. So it was kind of fun to see the very knowledgeable crowd out there in Lethbridge, which is certainly what you expect at a Alberta event, a knowledgeable crowd. So it was good to see that. So yeah, there you have it. Congratulations again to Brad Gushue. They are scheduled to go to the World Championships in Las Vegas in a couple of weeks to represent Canada. Brett Gallant is also scheduled to go and play in the mixed doubles world championship. Who knows if this affects that in any way? If he says, hey, you know that I've heard about this sleep thing. Maybe I want to try that at some point. But presumably he and Jocelyn Peterman will do that. And then Brett Gallant will have certainly earned a well-deserved break from curling for a while. And I'll be curious to see if Team Gushue I'm sure they'll play in the last two slams, I would think, but maybe some lineup changes just to get off your feet for a while. Who knows? But again, since it's their last events, we'll have to see how that one plays out. But yeah, so congratulations to them. They get another shot at a world championship. I did notice Oscar Erickson after the game tweeted something like, "Hey, I remember the last time you were at a world championship in Vegas. Let's do that again." So, so a little chirping has already started for that event. All right, let's move on to the Paralympics, which have wrapped up over in Beijing. The 2022 Olympic Paralympic cycle has now concluded. Everybody, I believe, has made it home safely. I saw yesterday some of the Americans had the last, I think, trickle of the American team had made it home. Very exciting event. You know, we're fans of the wheelchair curling discipline because it's so different strategically and from the viewing experience from what you see in the 4-person or the mixed doubles. It really is a standalone discipline. And Scott, when we talked about it in our preview, I had Sweden as a team to watch out for. I think you said that China was a prohibitive favorite as the 2-time defending world champion. And that was your gold medal game, China against Sweden.
That's right. They were the best two teams all week. Team Canada had a very good week as well. They actually beat China in the round robin early on in the week. But Sweden and China, they just were the class of the field at the end of the day. Like they were the two best teams. It wasn't even particularly close. Canada was able to hang. They lost a couple games later on in the week that you might question, but that's the discipline of wheelchair curling. Like things change really fast. I know Ryan from Rocks Across the Pond was tweeting the USA games when he could, and yeah, like they looked like they were in a good spot one time, and then oops, they gave up 4. Like it, you know, the games can turn really quickly. So yeah, Sweden, China, the class of the field. China comes out on top in that gold medal game. Congratulations to China for winning on home soil, I suppose. But nothing was really like unexpected from that standpoint. Slovakia being the 4th team that makes the playoffs, maybe a little surprising.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't think anyone had Slovakia in there going into the week. We were talking about what could the Americans do to get there. We talked about the British team. Maybe they can get there. The Koreans had a really good week in terms of the scoring differential. I don't think we really pegged Slovakia as a legitimate threat to make it into the playoffs. A great week for them. But what I really noticed in going through the numbers for this event is you didn't see the big swings of hammer efficiency, force efficiency that we saw at the World Championship. Certainly there's a lot of variation over the course of the teams that are in the field. But if you looked at those numbers from the World Championship, Sweden and or China, one of the two of them was 80% on their last stone, their hammer efficiency. And the high this week was under 50%. And when we're looking at the force efficiency, certainly Latvia was not very good in that category at only 15%. But the teams that were competitive and were in position to potentially make the playoffs, you're looking between 50 and 63%. So we didn't see those great variations in those numbers, which is a sign of teams maybe taking fewer chances over the course of the week. There are more blank ends in this event, which not that many, 16 in total, but that's more than you typically see at a world championship in the wheelchair curling discipline. So a little bit more defensive over the course of the week. Sweden, we talked about them as being a very high scoring team at world championships. They still did score a lot of points. They had 20 ends of multiple scores in 12 games, but that's down significantly from where they were at the world championship. And you see it really across the board that the scoring was just slightly down from the worlds. And that's something I think maybe we would have expected at the Olympics, because we see it at the big events and certainly played out here for the scoring side of it, in terms of the shooting percentage of it all, Canada, China, Sweden, Slovakia are the top 4. And there's a gap between the top 3 of Canada, China, Sweden, and going down to Slovakia over the course of the week. So when you look into those numbers, the results kind of make sense. And those 3 teams really were top of the field, top of the table in those peripheral areas. Like the British had a good week scoring wise, and you see some other numbers here and there. But if you're looking at the totality of the statistical side of things, those 3 teams are certainly the worthy medalist for this event.
Yeah, for sure. And Slovakia, it was surprising to me because they'd lost to Latvia and like lost to Norway, who I actually picked to win the gold medal. So bad job by me. But yeah, then they come back and they beat Sweden and they beat Canada. Those were kind of games that I wouldn't have expected them to win.
Mhm.
So when I look up, and see them on the standings right there, you're like, whoa, what? That's Kelka shows.
Yeah.
So yeah. But fun event as always. It's always fun to watch. And yeah, I look forward to the next World Championships.
Yeah. And I would be interested to know, and maybe Devin Haru, who's over there, asked this, and I just haven't seen it yet, but Canada, China in that semifinal, I wonder how much Mark Idison and the team really just after 2018 we're like, we can do that. Like we can, in China, like they're the home team. We can just like rip their heart out. It's like crush their like red as I mean, you want to win the gold medal anyway, but I wonder if there's like anything additional after 2018 for them. And unfortunately, they couldn't pull it off, but they do rebound and get a bronze medal. So from a Canadian perspective, the total of 2 medals across this cycle. It's not the greatest Curling Canada performance of all time, but it's also not the most disastrous, I would argue, Curling Canada performance of all time either. So not bad. Well, maybe it is the most disastrous. I don't know. We'd have to actually look that up. 2 bronze medals, but congratulations to Mark Idison and the team. And Ina Forrest just continues to cement her place as the most decorated wheelchair curler in Canadian history, certainly. And we'd have to explore more on the international scale. But she's she's gonna have a tough time getting through airport security with all those medals she's got.
Yeah, absolutely, and well deserved flag bearer as well.
Yes,
for the opening ceremonies, I believe.
Yes, she. There's 2 of them. The other person was a non-curler. I can't remember who it was, but yeah, certainly well deserved for Ina Forrest to get there and see if she wants to do another cycle with the Canadian wheelchair team, or if there's a bit of a change on that team, because they've all been around for a while now, and we'll see that there could be some changes coming, but they're also very good. So if they want to keep playing and continue to push to represent Canada, a little different, it's a selection process on the wheelchair side. And if they want to continue to be involved in that high performance program, I don't think anyone at Curling Canada is going to push them out the door.
No, that's for sure.
Yes. So congratulations again to China, Sweden, and Canada for their medals at the 2022 Paralympic Games in China. That wraps up all the action from over there, and a new quad has officially started. But we still have some business, I guess, to kind of take care of for this quad. If you want to include the 2022 Women's World Championships as part of the past quad or the start of the new quad, I would consider it part of the last quad, because how many of these teams are going to stay together? We'll see. And there's a lot of teams that are not here who might otherwise would be here. Actually, not that many, only a couple. So, Scott, let's go through the field for the 2022 Women's World Championship, which kicks off on Friday? Saturday, March the 19th in Prince George, British Columbia. They were, of course, denied the ability to host the World Championship in 2020, despite all the teams being there. It was the rather infamous March 13th, 2020, when things were canceled. All the teams were there. But let's talk about it, Scott. 2 years later, they are back hosting the Women's Worlds. Let's start with the host team of Canada. Carrie Anderson, third consecutive Scotties win. This will be her second appearance at the World Championship, of course, with Val Sweden, Shannon Burchard, and Brienne Mayer. Scott, let's just have a quick word association. What are your expectations for each of these teams? Let's start with Team Canada. What is your expectation?
I think they'll be focused, and it'll help that, last year in the bubble situation, it was sort of a long slog for Carrie and the team. This year, it's been a while since the Scotties. They've gotten a break. And I think that they'll be in this like refreshed and more focused than they were last year.
Okay. I'm going to go with relaxed. I think
Relaxed.
there's a lot of pressure last year, being in the bubble for as long as they were, plus the Olympic qualification side of it all. I think this week, just go, people there, have fun, really embrace it, play up with the crowd, have a good time, see what happens. Next up, it is Team Denmark. Madeline Dupont is back once again, and Scott hates Denmark in curling. Never thinks they're going to win a game, thinks they're going to go 0-4 every time. But Madeline Dupont continues to prove them wrong. Mathilde Hals is there, and of course, sister Denise and Mai Larson wrap out the team. Scott, what is your expectation for Team Denmark this year?
Not much is my expectation. They'll have fun, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, that's I guess that's not very nice, but
she seems like she has fun all the time.
Yeah. I mean, maybe let's say last hurrah.
Maybe.
Could that be the case?
It could be. You said that in 2018 too. So
I'm consistent.
Yeah, you are consistent in your feeling that this team will never make it back or do anything like that. They're fun. They're certainly capable of winning games, but probably not a playoff threat. Although, again, 6 teams making the playoffs, 13-team fields in a field that might be slightly easier than a typical year because a couple teams are not there from the Olympics. And maybe that leads to an opportunity for Denmark. I don't think so. I'm kind of with you that they're not really a serious playoff threat, but they might win more games than they otherwise would.
Okay.
And they won 2 games at the Olympics.
Yeah.
All right. Next up is Germany. Daniela Jentsch is skipping this team. They are back. Had a good run last year at the World Championships. Had a great run at the 2021 European Championship. Scott, where do you think Germany stacks up in this field?
Yeah, I think this is dark horse. This is a dark horse playoff contender. In my mind, they took a big leap this year at Euros, as you mentioned. They also had a pretty good time at Euros like 3 years ago. It all gets confused. So they've been sort of like knocking at the door of playoffs for a while. Now I'm worried that maybe they did make the playoffs last year, but that's what I think this team is, like a fringe playoff contender.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Of course, bronze medalist at this year's Euros, as mentioned. So I agree. I think they should be in the playoffs in this field, in this particular field. I think that they are a playoff team.
Yeah. The field is a bit weaker than usual.
Yeah. All right. Next up is Italy, and gold medalist Stefania Constantini, of course, winning with Amos Massaner at the Olympics in the mixed doubles. Marta Lo Deserto is the second, Angela Arome at second, and Veronica Zappone. They're throwing the lead stones for Stefania Constantini. She's been around a while, but she's still very, very young. Of course, everything in Italian curling, despite the gold medal that they just won, is pointing to 2026. And we would certainly expect Stefania to be the skip of that team on the women's side. So, Scott, what do you think she's got up her sleeve for this week?
Yeah, I think this is experience for this team. They're well positioned for their 2026 host role. This is just like another get more games under your belt against mostly top level competition.
Yeah, I agree. Like this is another step in the process for Italian curling. Playoffs would be great. I don't think it's necessary in terms of the progression of the team, but I also don't think it's impossible that they could make a playoff run here.
No, for sure, not impossible.
All right, next up is the Japanese side, and here's a team that is not going to be represented by the Olympic team. Instead, it is going to be Ikuya Kitazawa coming in. Seinya Nakajima is the third. Minori Suzuki and Hasumi Ishiguka is the lead stone, but holds the broom for Kitazawa, throwing the skip position. Scott, not Satsuki Fujisawa and the silver medalist from the Olympic Games. So a new look for Japan here, but a very good team. We know that. So what is your expectation for them here this week?
I guess I don't really have any because I don't follow Japanese curling maybe as closely as I should. So maybe it'll be for me discovering a new team.
Okay.
But for their expectation, like I have no idea. What do you think?
Well, so we've seen some of these players before at an event. Like Seinya Nakajima skipped at the 2019 Asia Pacific Curling Championship. Ishiguka was the fourth thrower there. Like so we have players who have been at international events representing Japan before. So it's not like they are completely devoid of international experience as a team, but you're right. We're not the experts on Japanese curling, but I would just say that to make it out of Japan on the women's side, you got to be good, even if Fujisawa isn't necessarily part of that. So there's enough depth there that don't sleep on this team.
Okay.
All right, next up is Korea. Eunjung Kim is making a return to the World Championship after going 4-5 at the Olympic Games and missing the playoffs. Scott, good team. We've seen them have good runs before. We've also seen them struggle at some events. So what is your expectation?
I think maybe some redemption for their Olympics performance here could be in order in this field. Like you said, very strong team, very capable team. So I would expect them to be pushing the playoffs here.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair for them to have that expectation again. It's a pretty open field, so you would expect them to certainly be in contention towards the end of the week. The Norwegians, another team that might push for something, is represented. The Norwegians represented by Kristen Skaslian. She is going to be throwing fourth, but Marianne Roverk is the skip of the team. Scott, this is a squad that we talk so much about Norwegian women's curling, and really it's Kristen Skaslian. And when can they make that step to be a regularly competitive team? We've seen them be relegated before and not have the greatest of weeks when they've gone to European championships. So what do we expect this week for Kristen Skaslian and the squad?
Yeah, this should be around the bottom of the field. When we think of Norwegian curling, honestly, on the women's side, it's basically irrelevant at the world level since the days of Dorothy Nordby, which we all remember fondly. And so, this is they broke through and have qualified for this, but they got to show something a bit more than we've seen for them to stay up at the top tier event.
Yeah. Another team that is going to be making a run to prove themselves at this level is Team Scotland. It is not Eve Muirhead and the gold medalists from the Olympics. Instead, it is Rebecca Morrison who is going to be making her debut at a world championship. Gina Aiken is the third. Sophie Sinclair and Sophie Jackson are the front end of this team. Rebecca Morrison has had some good performances in the Scottish National Championships, runner-up in 2020, for instance, has won a couple events here and there, including the Scottish Junior Championship back in 2018, and also the Scottish Mixed that year. So, Scott, not much to go on internationally for Rebecca Morrison and her team. So, what do you expect from them?
This should be a good learning experience, and this is Rebecca Morrison is like the future of women's curling in Scotland. She's been tabbed by the high performance program there as like the next skip. She did, I think, went as a fifth to at least the Europeans, if not the Olympics as well, with Eve Muirhead's team. So she's sort of being groomed for the next generation. So it should be a great learning experience and pretty fun for them to get over and get that world championship under their belts.
Well, a team that really wants a world championship under their belts, but a world championship victory is Sweden. Anna Hasselberg still looking for that somewhat elusive world championship, of course, with Sarah McManus, Agnes, and Sophia in the front end positions. Scott, favorites?
Question mark? Yeah. I think they've got to be given the edge based on the way that they've played and are playing.
Yeah, I remember in 2018, I was thinking, well, they just won a gold medal going into a world championship. They'll probably be pretty chill, or like the opportunity for a bit of a sort of down week of like, what's the motivation? You just won a gold medal, and they played great that week. And so I'm not going to make that mistake again, and will expect them to be in a position to get that world championship. That certainly it's all Anna Hasselberg needs to round out her career.
Mm-hmm. We saw Dean get his gold medal, so
yeah, the year of Swedish curling potentially.
Could be.
Yeah. All right, next up is Switzerland, and it is, of course, Alina Patz, Silvana Tiranzoni, the big back end for that team. Esther and Melanie Barbazat are there in the front end position, so it is the team that you expect. They walked off a plane after landing back in Switzerland, went right to the club and won the Swiss National Championship. Scott, it's just that easy for them, apparently, that they don't need any rest.
I think they did lose a game early in the event, or there was another team that was playing really well, and we thought, oh, maybe, and then they were like, no, and they do a 2 out of 3 final, and they beat them down like both games. Mm-hmm. I don't think they even finished 8 ends each of them. So yeah, they're good.
They're a very, very good team. Yeah. So again, you'd expect them and Sweden and Canada, I think, to be the top 3 in most people's brackets if you're filling one out for this week. And we certainly saw how good they are over the past couple of years. They are, of course, the defending champions in this event. Let's move on to Turkey, represented by Dilsat Yildiz. Scott, the Turkish side here, we've seen this rise of Turkish women's curling, and I know Jonathan has talked about Dilsat herself, that she can play, that she is a great shot maker, she knows the game, good strategy. The issue is filling out that team to the point where they can be competitive in the 4-person game, and really where Turkey might have its first breakthrough is in the mixed doubles, because you have Dilsat as such a strong player. But when you have such a strong player at this type of event, where you might not be looking at Turkey as a team to really pay attention to, and the team itself might not be strong enough to contend over the course of the week, but it doesn't mean that Dilsat herself can not have a game that just knocks somebody off, that she just plays, she's already really good, that she just plays out of her mind one day and kind of single-handedly wins a game. And I think that's what we might be looking for this team for this week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's great to see them having like fought their way up to qualify based on Euros. So I'm excited to watch them, honestly, and just see how the development moves forward. Sean, before we move on, I need to issue a correction to myself.
Okay.
that the Swiss final actually did go 3 games. The 2 that Tierney won, she did win in 9 ends both times, but they did lose that middle game 5-3
Okay.
to hold on to Rafaela Kaiser. So my apologies. Bad job by me.
Hey, it happens, it happens.
It happens, but we got to be better than that. So that's why I'm issuing that emergency correction.
All right, good job by you. All right, next up, the Americans, represented by Corey Christensen, Sarah Anderson, Victoria Persinger, and Taylor Anderson. Of course, the Nina Roth team that was at the Olympics is not going, nor is John Schuster. Those were officialized earlier this month. So we're seeing Corey Christensen at the World Championship. It's always interesting for the Americans at Worlds and the Olympics, frankly, because I'm never entirely sure what to expect. So what do you think for Corey Christensen this week, Scott?
I think they have a good chance to make the playoffs. This team was Jamie Sinclair's team, right?
I think so.
Or I guess the Anderson sisters played with Jamie. So yeah, this team has been positioned. They are the next best team in American women's curling. So I think they have a good shot to make the playoffs. They should be around that maybe 7 and how many games do they play now? 12, 7 and 5, 6 and 6, 7 and 5 area, knocking on the door of the playoffs.
Yeah, and should note, like, Vicky Persinger was the spare back in 2018-19 at the World Championship. So she was part of that, and the Anderson sisters, as you say, with Jamie Sinclair. Monica Walker was on that team, and then there was a year of Sinclair, Christensen, Persinger, Taylor Anderson, with Sarah Anderson as the 5th. So, and they were the runners-up in the American Nationals then, and then there was the switch in 2020, 2021. So yeah, they've all played with Jamie Sinclair at some point. All right, and let's wrap up the field for the Women's World Championship. The Czech Republic, represented by Alzbeta Bodisova. So it's not Kubiskova, who we've seen before representing the Czech Republic. So a new name coming into the field. Petra Vinsova, Michaela Bodisova, and Klara Svatanova are the other reps on this team. I don't know, Scott. I'm not super high on Czech curling, just sort of in terms of the results where they've been. Of course, you still got to qualify for this, which they've done. So they're here, and they have better.
Sean, do you want to talk about why they qualified or how they qualified?
Do we have to?
No, we don't. But they're here in place of Russia.
Yes, they are.
That's all we can say.
That's what we could say, yes. Russia was asked not to participate, or they were banned from the World Curling Federation events. I'm guessing this will lead to some sort of legal something at some point, but it's not what you want.
Yeah. So then the Czechs were the next team on the list. They just failed to qualify at the Euros in December, finishing 1 spot outside of the field. So they got bumped up. I think
we should. Hold on. I think we have to clarify that because Madeline Dupont got the spot in the World Qualification event. Bodisova went 2-7 and lost to Madeline Dupont. So they were relegated to the B division. So they will be in Euro Bs next year, despite being here at the World Championship. And then at the World Qualification event, they went 0-6. So it's not because of the World Qualification event. It's because of the Euros, clearly.
That's what I said, right?
Yeah, but they could have invited Latvia. They were the last team out at the World Qualification event.
Yeah, I guess so.
Right. So they're choosing Euros over the World Qualification event.
Well, because that's the event from which the Russian team qualified to get in. So
right. So that's the spot that they're taking.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if I'm Latvia, I'm like, come on, man.
Come on, man. What are we
What
even
else do I
doing out
got to
here?
do over here? Yeah, but obviously, so the circumstances of Russia not participating has allowed the Czech Republic to enter the event. And as we said a couple weeks ago, there's not really anything we can add to the situation, to the real world situation of what's happening in Ukraine. But the curling ramifications are such that Russia is not there and the Czech Republic is in. And if the Czech Republic win a game, great.
Yeah, I almost thought they would keep it at 12, to be honest, but they're going, and yeah,
Probably
if
just
they
screws
win,
up the schedule too much to have them at 12.
yeah, it would. You're right. So yeah, if they win a game, good on.
So there you have it, the 13 teams that are either en route or already in Prince George, British Columbia for the 2022 Women's World Championship. Scott, who you got?
Oh boy. So before we make these picks, Sean, I'll run down our scores right now.
Okay.
I've included the Brier and Paralympics results.
Okay.
You're beating me 36 points to 30 points on the year.
Okay. Good job by me.
And where you're really beating me is on the women's side. You've gained 4 points on me there, only
Wow.
2 on the men's side. So I got to really focus here. And I can't not take the top 3 because I got to score points, Sean. I got to win. So in any order that you like, whatever, Canada, Switzerland, and Sweden. I'm also going to take Italy. I'm going to take Germany, and I'm going to take USA for those
All right.
other spots, and give me Anna Hasselberg to get her gold medal world championship, and that'll be great.
All right. I'm also going to take the top 3. I think, obviously, I'll take Germany, Korea, and Scotland to round out my field. And I'm going to go with Carrie Anderson to get a world championship and maybe calm some folks in Canada.
Okay.
All right. So there you have it, our full quick rundown of the 2022 Women's World Field, as well as a recap of some of the other stuff going on. But Scott, before we go, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the officialization of some team breakups. Team Cooey announced today, as we record, that they are going their separate ways. And in other news, dairy milk comes from cows. And what else? Brad Jacobs has announced that he is going to take at least a year away. Again, that's not surprising. He really laid the foundation for that at the Olympic curling trials. Jennifer Jones, their team is going their separate way. Caitlin Laws, in the interview with Ted Wyman, mentioned that she's still considering what she wants to do. That's a little surprising to me. Just it wasn't. I read that in the sense of whether or not she wants to play next year, as opposed to who she wants to play with. But I'm probably going to be wrong, and I'm sure she will play. Jennifer Jones has options because she now lives in Ontario, but did in that same article note that it'd be weird not to play out of Manitoba if you're Jennifer Jones. Another Manitoba team is off the table. Tracy Fleury, her team has announced that they're breaking up, and Liz Fife put on Instagram that the 3 of them, the 3 front players who joined in with Tracy Fleury, of course, formerly Carrie Anderson's team, that they are broken up as well. So certainly see where all the chips land there. Could involve Caitlin Laws, if we're being honest. And I think that's it for the ones since we last talked, Scott.
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to think if there's any more. The only one that's kind of surprising is maybe Tracy Fleury, but they put themselves together to go for it in this quad. So,
but they came so close. Like, I think that's
They
what
did.
was surprising to me, that they came so close. And if you look around at the situation, like I realize the point of team shuffles is to put yourself in better positions, and obviously the status quo doesn't really happen anymore, right? Gushue, that team staying together, and That's the exception to the rule, no question about it. But I that was a team that I kind of looked at and thought maybe
Yeah.
they're ascending, and it didn't feel to me like they had peaked. So I thought that was one that had a chance to stay together. Not shocked that they are breaking up, but I look at it and if I'm Tracy Fleury, I think it's going to be hard to get better as a like with who you surround yourself. I mean, unless Tracy Fleury is picking up Caitlin Laws, and the Selena Negavin's really, really good. But again, I'm of the position that Caitlin Laws is the best all-around player in the world. So yeah, if you can get Caitlin Laws, sure. But
Right.
just on my immediate reaction to it was, for Tracy Fleury, it's going to be tough for her to get better teammates than those three.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So there you have it. The shuffle has already started. Nothing real groundbreaking in terms of new team announcements yet. There's been a few here and there, some teams shuffling lineups here and there. So some things are happening, but the big news has yet to come. And I'm sure more and more team announcements of people breaking up will continue to trickle out over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and the team tracker is back at Curling Geek. So if you want to go take a look there, you'll be able to see, okay, what new teams have formed, what teams are Splitsville, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, he made a comment on Twitter today that he should have sprung for the unlimited package for the team tracker. I guess it's but a mix of traffic and the amount of stuff he has to put up is starting to get cumbersome over on the team tracker.
Yes, and there's also a free agents tab now, so
yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I like too that he has the international. You can sort by international, men's and women's teams. It's pretty cool. It's continues to be upgraded, the team tracker, every year.
Yeah, it's a good visualization.
Absolutely. So certainly check that out. Scott, anything else from the world of curling that stands out to you here on a Wednesday afternoon?
Nothing that I can think of. Just getting excited now for the weekend and the World Women's starting. Should be a lot of fun.
All right. Well, there's one thing I need to know, Scott, from the world of curling. I've intentionally not looked at results from the Ottawa Curling Club, where 18 months after you suggested the Monday team go to a skip till you lose scenario, in which if the team loses, we rotate positions, and you suggested this in part so that you could skip. I finally relinquished the baton.
That's right.
And handed it to you. And you have skipped at least one game, potentially two. Scott, how's it gone?
Sean, you'll be slotting in at the third position next week. As
oh my goodness,
we when I skipped, I played maybe the worst game of my life, and it's really hard for me. What's really impressive about Brad Gushue is that when he only had one sweeper, he didn't change anything. And when I only had one sweeper, I think in the back of my mind, I thought, well, I better give this like a little bit extra because Megan's sweeping by herself.
Right.
And I think I threw almost all my draws through. So yeah, I couldn't throw it slow enough, the game that we played. And so we didn't score a point. So that's 2 in a row.
Yeah, because the last game I was skipping, we also got skunked. So we went 2 games in a row without scoring a point.
2 games in a row without scoring a point. And then this week, we were back to the usual skip, being the skip. And we scored 1 point this week. So
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So in 3 games, we've scored 1 point.
That's correct.
Oh man.
And we had 1 default in there too.
Right. So it's things have taken a turn. We were on I skip. We have a 6-game winning streak. And then I lose finally. And really just went off a cliff, didn't it?
Really did. But you know what, Sean? We'll be down in the D division. We're playing for Barbucks. We got to win D.
Yeah.
Get
This is
some
what
bar
happened.
bucks.
Yeah, this is what happened at the end of 2019. They got into the D, and the way it works is the team that finishes first in that last draw, that last 5-game draw, you get bar bucks. And we did that in 2019. And now that we're going back down after moving up, that'll be good. Hopefully we can get on a similar run and get those bar bucks.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah, well, I am stunned, Scott,
Yeah.
to hear this.
Good.
Well, if you're out there playing, do better than us, and you can start by hitting subscribe. Although, based on those results, I don't know what
Why
value
listening?
like what value do we have? What's our analysis worth? I think it's worth maybe something. And only half of us were involved in those games, so
That's right.
I was absent from them. I can take, and I'll tell you, on my other team, I was gone, also lost. So, if you're looking for an ego boost, leave and have your team lose, I guess. But do subscribe if you have not yet. Wherever it is you get your podcast, the likes, ratings, comments, all that good stuff helps us grow the show, helps other people find us. And especially if you're new, you found us during the Olympic Games, thank you for listening. This is what we do during the season, this kind of stuff. In the off season, we have some more evergreen content. So certainly do follow along here on the podcast feed or on social media, where you can find us at Game of Stones Pod on Twitter and Instagram, Game of Stones Podcast on Facebook, and do head on over gameofstonespod.com. All of our past episodes are available there, plus a link to the merch, with all proceeds from the t-shirts going to Food Banks Canada, and all the other products, the proceeds are for the Sandra Schmirler Foundation. We match all of the proceeds from that. With the summer coming up, who knows, maybe we'll change some stuff out, because right now there's the toque, there's the hoodie. Maybe we'll change it to maybe some warm weather stuff. Who knows? But we'll certainly update you if we do. And as always, you can let us know what you want to hear on the show at gameofstonespodcast@gmail.com. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Scott, how long did it take you to recover from your shellacking when did you put so much pressure on yourself that going into the game you had expectations for yourself, and then afterwards took you a while to get your mind right after that?
Well, Sean, we haven't been staying for drinks, but I definitely needed a drink after that one. I stayed afterwards. We talked with the team, so that was fine. It was okay. I got over it pretty quick, but
That's good.
definitely needed to cash in on my drink after that one.
Yeah. Well, it's something. I've been gone for a couple weeks, and actually the week before I was gone, we had 2 defaults in the games I was supposed to play. One on Monday, we defaulted to the other team, and on the Thursday league, the other team defaulted to us. Now, both times I went to the Ottawa Curling Club and threw some stones, but I haven't played a game now in 3 weeks, because I have a bye tomorrow night as well. So it'll be 3 weeks since my last game, 4 weeks really since my last game.
Wow.
3 weeks off. And I was saying on the flight back, I was like, I hope they win at least one of the games, preferably both games, and I can come back into the front end, preferably lead, ease my way back into it. But no, that's apparently not what's happening.
No, you're into the fire, bud.
All right, well, we'll see how that goes, and see how the Women's Worlds goes. We'll be back with you next week to update all the goings-ons from British Columbia and some other stuff in the world of curling as team roster announcements start to trickle out, maybe some other fun stuff as well. So do join us for that next week. But until then, thanks for listening, and keep those brooms on the ice, and don't dump that intern.
Make the final